All right,
Hey.
welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uger and Kasparian with you guys on a lovely Friday afternoon. Uh, so, I don't know. I haven't been outside, and probably you haven't either. Now we got a big show ahead for you guys. Huge fight over the so-called stimulus bill, bailout bill, both from the Republican and Democratic side. But I actually wanted to update you guys on our campaign as well about how healthy is TYT. So we've been doing tyt.com/go. Yesterday we were trying to get to $200,000, which is very difficult because we were at 182. But as always, you guys are legends. So right now we're at $212,024. Okay.
Wow.
I know.
That's a lot. That's amazing.
They are. We love you guys. So yesterday, someone won the aspiration contest, and Judith, our head of programming, was asking me, it's going to take a while to bring her in to do dinner in LA because of social distancing. Do you guys want to talk to her on Skype? I was like, of course I do. Everybody's so wonderful to participate. I wish I could talk to every single one of you. Well, not every single one of you, but almost all of you.
Jeez.
No one keeps it real like we do. All right. Anyway, so you guys are the best. Let's see if we can hit our goal, which is crazy, 250 by the end of March. But we do have a couple days left, and you guys always, prove me wrong even when I doubt. Even when I doubt, you pick me up. Thank you guys. Love you. tyt.com/go. So much news. Anna, take it away.
All right. So, in an effort to produce the 80,000 ventilators needed in order to save lives in the United States during this pandemic, the Trump administration was working with GM and one other organization, one other company, to develop and produce these ventilators. And there was a story published by the New York Times. There's a big update to it about how the Trump administration actually ended up backing away from making that deal because they were concerned about the $1 billion price tag that was attached to it. Now, as we know, both the Senate and the House just passed their stimulus legislation, and that would cost $2 trillion. So $1 billion to save lives sounds like something that you should spend money on. But after, I guess, enough pushback, Trump has agreed to make this deal, and GM will be producing the ventilator. So, Cenk, I wanted you to jump in since you have the update on that story.
Yeah. So Trump just invoked the Defense Production Act, and he will be forcing GM to actually make the ventilators. Now, let's talk this through because Trump, as usual, has given incorrect information several times. And it's a tweet. So with Trump, you never really know, right? But in the past, he was like, GM's got to do something. This is ridiculous. And then he'd turn around and be like, we don't need the ventilators. Cuomo's exaggerating. I don't know if we need to do this at all. I'm canceling the deal. And then now he's back to right before he said he's definitely doing it. He put out a saying, well, we need the D or the P, right? I'm like, why not all 3 letters? It's not a lot of letters. Okay. I think it was a P, come to think of it, not the D.
Yeah, I was
going to say. Okay. Anyway, so, and it looks like based on the last tweet, he is going to force them to do it. Now, what's the difference? They were already negotiating about doing it. Why force them to do it? Because he appears to be saying he's unhappy about the price and the delay in dealing with GM. No, now let's be fair. If GM is actually trying to price gouge, well, then he's right to be upset, right? And you can't have it both ways, guys. We always have to be honest, okay? So it's possible that they could have made a deal, and for $1 billion, you get 20 ventilators, and then we'd all be so mad at how much we overpaid that giant corporation. And at the same time, we need those ventilators. So it's actually possible in this case that Trump did the right thing, that if GM was being a little too obstinate or trying to make too much profit off of it, he's like, oh, yeah, Defense Production Act, and I'm done with it. You're going to do it now, and we'll worry about the price later. So we don't know enough of those details to know for sure, but I'm glad they're doing the ventilators. They should have done this a long time ago. We can talk more about that in a second.
Definitely. So we have some video of Trump really undermining the necessity for ventilators. We'll go to that in a minute. But I wanted to make a point about how, we just like agreed to a massive multi-trillion-dollar bailout for corporations that have dodged taxes throughout the years, that have shipped jobs abroad throughout the years, that have underpaid their workers throughout the years. And so it's just fascinating to see like where the priorities are, because I get it. If we feel like we're being price gouged by GM, well, then maybe there can be some pressure placed by the Trump administration in order to get them to lower the prices to produce these ventilators. But in the grand scheme of things, $1 billion is nothing compared to what we're willing to spend in taxpayer money to bail out these corporations. And keep in mind, these ventilators would literally save lives. So the messaging here, and if you just focus on the optics, is, the issue that we keep bringing up throughout this show, which is this country seems to value corporate profits more than human lives. I would much rather invest taxpayer money in creating or producing the products that we need to keep people alive, as opposed to spending that money to bail out companies that, by the way, didn't do what we're expected to do as average Americans. They didn't save up for a rainy day, right? So that's the reason why as soon as the coronavirus, started, all these companies really started to feel the economic pressure.
Yeah. So look, I agree with you 1,000,000,000% on. So we have apparently $4.25 trillion for corporations to make sure they're healthy, but we're having like this giant price negotiation over $1 billion, which is 0.05% of the bailout money, to keep actual human beings healthy. And so I don't mind a negotiation back and forth, and I want us to get the best price, but I want that to be consistent on all of this, and it certainly hasn't been. And overall, here on that point, look, the ventilators should have been one of the top priorities. Number one should have been the test kits. Number two should have been masks, and number three should have been ventilators. And if you have good, competent management, you would have had all these things lined up, and you would have been panicking. My God, what if we run out of ventilators? Then we're going to have to tell doctors or give guidance to the government, to the state governments, on who to prioritize in saving lives and who to let die. That's an insane, unacceptable decision. So we've got to get the ventilators right now before they run out in New York and other places. And I didn't see any of that urgency until today.
I totally agree with you. And a lot of these products are manufactured in other countries, and not just the ventilators, but also the face masks that nurses and doctors need in order to protect themselves while they're treating patients with COVID-19. And so there's a price to pay when you really think about it. When we ship everything, all of the manufacturing to other countries, because when you have a global pandemic like this, we can't rely on our own supply chain in order to produce the products that we need. Now, GM, of course, manufactures cars, but the technology and the equipment that they have is different from what's necessary to build the ventilators, which is why even with GM's help, it's going to take some time to produce the ventilators. But I'm just making a point about how we need to really rethink how we manufacture things and how we've shipped a lot of our manufacturing jobs abroad. It actually does put us at a disadvantage in many ways, including, of course, shipping jobs abroad. But with that said, I do want to go to Trump's interview with Sean Hannity. He felt the need to really minimize the need for as many ventilators as we actually do need to keep people alive. Let's take a look.
So here's the thing. Important context here, we don't have the full tape. So this is obviously snippets that have been released. The podcaster and the writer that released this sound is clearly a Bernie supporter. If you look at his Twitter feed, he's very anti-Bloomberg. He is promoting a hashtag.
New York
Bloomberg
is a bigger deal, but it's going to go also. But I have a feeling that a lot of the numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be. I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. You know, you go into major hospitals sometimes, they'll have 2 ventilators. And now all of a sudden they're saying, can we order 30,000 ventilators?
So the doctor that Fox News actually keeps having on to share her expertise, her name is Nicole Safier, tweeted immediately after that segment and said the following: regardless of what anyone says, ventilators are low in supply and we need as many as we can possibly get while we continue to slow the spread. And she's absolutely right. And if you just look at the way people commented on that, they just expect her to be loyal to Trump and agree with everything he says. And I'm glad that she didn't. I'm glad that she told the truth about how much we need the ventilators.
Yeah. So look, it's so painful to see how incompetent and ridiculous our president is, and this is the time that you need someone who's really smart and competent and a good manager. And he has none of that ability. I mean, it is so unbelievably irresponsible to go on television and say, a lot of hospitals have only one or two ventilators. Not remotely true. There is no major hospital with only one or two ventilators, not within a million miles of true. And to minimize it when you obviously need a lot of ventilators, you know how many cases New York alone has now? Last I checked, it was around 37,000. By today, it was supposed to pass 40,000. Well, Cuomo said they needed 40,000 ventilators. Not everybody who has COVID-19 needs a ventilator, but it's growing exponentially. Every single day, it seems to literally every 2 days, the cases double. Now, they won't double forever, obviously, right? But it's going at a crazy rate. And they need those ventilators. And Jacob Javits Center has been turned into a giant hospital. But if you don't have the ventilators, it doesn't help. So for him to go out there and go, oh, what's the big deal? We don't need that many. And then if you think that's true, then why are you panicking over General Motors right now? He's so inconsistent. He's such a buffoon. And this is not about politics. And people say, oh, you shouldn't say that stuff about Trump because you're making it political. No, we need somebody competent right now. I mean, he doesn't have to step aside politically. I don't give a damn. Just have an adult run this goddamn thing.
Right. But he has so much of an ego. He would never allow that to happen. And he likes to delegate among his own family members. And that's a huge issue as well. If you can recall, in the beginning of the pandemic, Donald Trump decided to just listen to the advice of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Jared Kushner thought this was nothing more than a PR stunt by the Democrats in order to hurt Trump's chances of re-election. Well, now we're learning that, unfortunately, Trump has decided to turn to Jared Kushner yet again when it comes to something as serious as the ventilators. The New York Times reported that at the center of the discussion about how to ramp up the production of ventilators is Jared Kushner, who has told people that he was called in 2 weeks ago by Vice President Mike Pence to produce more coronavirus test kits, and who has now turned his attention to ventilators. So that's definitely not a promising update.
No, it's a carnival, man. It's a three-ring circus. So what difference does it matter, or what difference does it make which particular clown is in charge? There's not a competent person within miles of the Oval Office. So here, let me read you the Trump tweets from earlier in the day that I was referring to in the beginning. He's now invoked the DPA, but at the time he was saying, as usual with this General Motors, and he has this in quotes. I don't know what that means. Okay, as usual with this General Motors, things just never seem to work out. They were going to give us 40,000 much-needed ventilators. You just said you didn't need them. Anyway, quote, very quickly, now they're saying it will only be 6,000 in late April, and they want top dollar. Always a mess with Mary B. And then he says, invoke P. I think that because it's DPA, right? Defense Production Act. He might have said invoke D. And then people were like, no, that doesn't sound good. So he randomly went with the middle initial. Okay. Invoke P. Okay. And then the next tweet is, General Motors must immediately open their stupidly abandoned Lordstown plant in Ohio or some other plant and start making ventilators now. Ford, get going on ventilators fast. I read those like that because they're in all caps with 1,000 exclamation points. Which child says their stupidly abandoned Lordstown plant? This child that's in charge.
The only role of government is to keep people safe. Right? The only role that I think both parties agree on fundamentally is that it's supposed to keep us safe. This is a huge public health issue. This is a huge problem in so many parts of the country. And by the way, we're not even at the peak of that curve yet. So more people are getting tested. We're starting to learn more and more about the severity of coronavirus's spread in the United States. It was just reported that we now lead the country or lead the world when it comes to the number of people infected with coronavirus. And it's just terrifying that you have this incompetent fool, leading us, obviously badly, through this pandemic. It's terrifying because so many people are going to lose their lives due to his incompetence. And I agree with you, Cenk. This is not about politics. It's about accurately critiquing the failures of the president, the one person who is supposed to handle this situation based on what experts are telling him. And he's not doing that. He's just this shoot from the hip kind of guy who doesn't take anything seriously unless it impacts him specifically.
Now, look, last thing on this. I just can't stand the on the other hand stuff in this situation. If you're talking about some political thing that's important but not life-threatening, okay, CNN wants to say on the one hand this and on the other hand that, and that's what everybody, New York Times, NPR, PBS, they all want to say the same thing, right? And they think they're tough on Trump, but half the time they totally excuse him, right? Okay, but in a situation like this, no, there's a right and wrong. We don't have the damn masks, and people are getting it nonstop. Another expert came out today, said that there might be 100 million cases in America alone. Boris Johnson now has coronavirus. Prince Charles has coronavirus. I mean, this thing is massively contagious. And you're sending in doctors and nurses to treat people without masks. That's insane. Now we're getting to the last level where you don't have ventilators when people need ventilators. In about, not this minute, but it looks like based on the trends, in about 2 weeks, we're going to be out of ventilators. And so if you go to the hospital or your parents go to the hospital and they need a ventilator, we're going to let them die. And so don't talk to me about, well, you're being impolite and politically incorrect if you say Donald Trump is a moron who can't manage a goddamn thing. He couldn't begin to ask the right questions, let alone execute the right strategy in a complicated, important matter like this. We should have never, ever elected a stupid carnival barker like Donald Trump, because a president matters.
When we come back from the break, we'll discuss the House and its passage of the Senate Economic Relief Bill. And then later, Trump gets into a little bit of a fight with some of the GOP lawmakers. So we have that and more when we come back.
You're about to watch some behind-the-scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member. Go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind-the-scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show-like. tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing.
Oh, that was disastrous. This has been Behind the Scenes, Behind the Scenes.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News! I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve, and the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing-walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer in true Weekly World News tradition? It's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
When news is breaking and when you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time. When news breaks, when news is breaking and you like. When news is breaking and you need Brett Ehrlich, it's time for Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. This is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on the Young Turks, guys. So I'm going to go in reverse order here. I'm going to start on Twitter and go up to members in terms of comments, because on Twitter we got a lot of folks with local stories. Jim Resser says, our local hospital in a small town of 18,000 people has at least 5 ventilators. New York City has, what, 10 million people, somewhere in that ballpark? So I think they've got a little bit more than 1 or 2 ventilators per hospital. Zoran Kukovic writes in, Trump doesn't need experts around him. He's the most expertly expert that ever experted. Good point as usual, Zoran. Johnny Grateful writes in, I work in the auto industry. Do you know what kind of undertaking it is to have a car company make medical equipment? It's a multi-billion-dollar endeavor, not even to speak of timeliness and quality. Johnny, that's a great point. So that's why I said during that story, you know, it's really, really hard to know how much these things are going to cost. Is it price gouging or is it perfectly reasonable? And so, again, I wish we had someone smart in charge to be able to tell. Anyway, go to YouTube Super Chat, and we appreciate it every time you guys do that because it helps the show. Use that. Steve writes in, Steve Snyder, I thought Anna and Cenk were setting up the most powerful dramatic pause before drop it, but it turns out it was just a lag due to having to film from home. Still the ultimate power panel. Yes. So a lot of you guys asked if why I didn't drop it because it's a Friday. Dude, we're doing this from home and there's 2 of us. Yes, I agree. It's a super powerful panel between Anna and I, but we're doing the best we can. But I love you guys that you cared enough that you missed it. Okay, we'll try to bring it back as soon as we can. Christy Aiken-Smith also on YouTube Super Chat says, became a member and donated. Thanks for keeping me sane. Well, thank you for keeping us alive. TYT.com/join to become a member, and TYT.com/go to contribute to our fundraising efforts here to keep TYT in business. And right now it's at over 213,000. Let's see if we can get to 250 by the end of the month. There's a couple of days left to do it. There's too many here. I'll read only one here from YouTube. From our members' comments. Anna's Margarita Salt says, 80,000 is, I know, I love their constant reference to secret salt. Anyway, 80,000 is not going to be enough. As usual, taking a victory lap for buying a Band-Aid to heal a gushing wound. That's right. Some of those experts are anywhere near right. I mean, that 100 million number is so unbelievable. If there really are anywhere near 100 million cases, you think 80,000 ventilators are going to be enough? No. I don't even want to think about it. Remember, likely the fatality rate is lower than what people are saying. I think it's probably, my best guess is that it's around 1% because so many people have it and don't realize they have it, and we don't have enough test kits. But even at 1%, do the math. That is a stunning number of dead people.
Yes.
We got to get those ventilators en masse immediately.
Well, let's talk about the stimulus bill that just passed in the House, because there is a big update on that story. So, the House of Representatives has officially passed the Senate version of the economic stimulus bill. This is in response to COVID-19's damage to the economy and to average Americans' finances. Now, the bill passed using a voice vote, and that means that lawmakers would just shout yay or nay in voting, and the majority would win. And in this case, of course, the yay votes won, and that's how they passed it. Now, the bill had a number of flaws, the biggest one being the corporate bailouts, which we have complained about on this show quite a bit. But luckily, there were some lawmakers who were willing to voice their displeasure at that portion of the stimulus bill. And I think the person who made that argument the strongest was Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
I represent one of the hardest hit communities in the hardest hit city in this country, Queens, New York. 13 dead in a night in Elmhurst Hospital alone. Our community's reality is this country's future if we don't do anything. Hospital workers do not have protective equipment. We don't have the necessary ventilators. But we have to go into this vote eyes wide open. What did the Senate majority fight for? One of the largest corporate bailouts with as few strings as possible in American history. Shameful. The greed of that fight is wrong for crumbs, for our families. And the option that we have is to either let them suffer with nothing or to allow this greed and billions of dollars, which will be leveraged into trillions of dollars, to contribute to the largest income inequality gap in our future. There should be shame about what was fought for in this bill and the choices that we have to make.
So it feels good to see some lawmakers voice their concern and just how angry they are about those corporate bailouts, because even though it's being presented as a $500 billion corporate bailout, which, by the way, is still ridiculous, when you consider how it can be leveraged, it'll cost trillions of dollars. And yeah, it is crumbs. Americans are getting $1,200 in one check, if they qualify for it. So we're going to be means tested to see if we qualify for that stimulus check. But when it comes to the corporate bailouts, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, so there's two things that AOC's really right about. One is she should be absolutely outraged about how hard her district's hit. It's one of the districts that's hardest hit, maybe the single hardest hit district in the whole country. Now, obviously, that doesn't have anything to do with her, but what that does mean is that she's their representative, and she needs to represent their rage. And they're the ones that need the medical assistance the most. So, which then leads to point number two. She's saying, look, at this point, it's the take it or leave it proposition. And we're going to have to take it because what are we going to do? Turn down the help for the people who desperately need it in my district and all the other districts? So the real problem was in the negotiations. So once you've negotiated something, especially in an emergency like this, is pretty much over. And so the part she doesn't tell you is the people who got rolled as usual was Democratic leadership. So let me be clear in how they should have prioritized. She alluded to it there, and how they got it exactly in reverse. The number one priority should have been the health of the citizens, medical supplies. How do you produce them? How do you get them to the right places, et cetera? There's money for hospitals in the bill, But in terms of producing the medical equipment that we need to save lives, not even mentioned. So exact opposite of what it should be. So number one priority should be medical help. Number two priority should be help for the citizens. Number three should be small businesses. And number four should be big businesses. I'm not saying leave the big businesses out. And some of them really do need the help. And there's a really good question as to how to get them the help. But instead, the priority order was the exact opposite. 4.25 trillion in loans from the Fed for big businesses, another 500 billion in loans and grants to big businesses. By far the biggest amount. I mean, overwhelmingly, like 90% of the help goes to big businesses. Then it goes small business, then real people, and then medical is at the end.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part about it, anytime you argue with someone who's in favor of the bailouts, they'll use this, talking point about, well, these companies employ so many people, so you want to bail them out so we don't lose all these jobs. But what's incredible is some of the airline companies announced today that they're going to lay off a bunch of employees. This is immediately after the House passed the bailouts for the corporations, right? And going back to the arguments we've been making about lack of oversight and lack of strings attached, they don't have to follow through with keeping all of their employees. They can go ahead, these big corporations, they can go ahead and fire 10% of their workforce between now and 6 months. And then after that 6 months, they're free to fire as many people as they want. So this isn't about protecting American jobs. They have that standard for small businesses. If small businesses want to have their loans forgiven, they have to keep their workers. And I'm glad that they have that rule, right? Because we want to save jobs. But the big corporations, which employ far more people, do not have that same standard when it comes to the bailout money.
And by the way, no one on earth could rationalize that. That makes, I read all the fine print last night, not just because I have to do a news show, but because I have a small business and it's critical to keeping us alive. What's more critical is you guys, by the way, tyt.com/go. It's no joke. We absolutely need it now. But when you are looking at the loans, the grants, et cetera, that small businesses, big businesses are getting, there's some good things in there for small businesses. And thank God, I hope that helps. But having said that, they have a requirement that you keep all your workers, which is great, which is what I asked for when we were discussing this bill in the first place. Then you turn to the big businesses, no requirement. Anna just explained to you the details. So same rules don't apply. And why? The big businesses have more employees and the small businesses need more leeway. I'm not saying that to change the rules for the small businesses, but why doesn't it apply to the big businesses? Because of course, the campaign donations.
So let's move on to a Republican who wasn't happy about the corporate bailouts. I'm sure as a Republican, he didn't like the amount of money spent on average American workers either. But there's some principle here, which I do respect. And anyone who's principled against Donald Trump will have to deal with Donald Trump's snotty little Twitter comments. So Donald Trump is feuding with a Republican lawmaker over the stimulus bill. Now, as the House debated passage of the Senate's version of the economic stimulus bill, there was one Republican lawmaker who was really from Kentucky, from Kentucky, Representative Thomas Massey. And according to the Louisville Courier-Journal, he was quoted as saying, this is $2 trillion. Divide $2 trillion by 350 million people, meaning how many people live in the United States. It's almost $6,000 for every man, woman, and child. I'm talking about spending. This won't go to the men, women, and children. So if you have a family of 5, this spending bill represents $30,000 of additional U.S. national debt because there is no plan to pay for it. So his biggest issue is that most of this money is going toward the bailouts. It's actually not going to men, women, children in the country. As we know, if you qualify for it as an average American, you only get a one-time check of $1,200. And so since he was signaling that he could possibly block this legislation, all of a sudden you have lawmakers rushing back to the Capitol in order to vote on it, right? Because the initial plan was to do a unanimous consent, meaning that the lawmakers wouldn't have to be at Capitol Hill to do a roll call vote. But in the end, they ended up doing a voice vote anyway, which means that they all shout yay or nay, and then the majority ends up winning. In this case, the yay votes won. So this really did upset Donald Trump. And on Twitter, he wrote, "Looks like a third-rate grandstander named Representative Thomas Massie, a congressman from Kentucky, a truly great state, Kentucky, wants to vote against the new Save Our Workers bill." By the way, it's not titled Save Our Workers bill in Congress. He just wants the publicity. He can't stop it. Only delay, which is both dangerous and costly. Workers and small businesses need money now in order to survive. Virus wasn't their fault. It is hell dealing with Democrats. Had to give up some stupid things in order to get the big picture done. 90% great, win back House, but throw Massie out of the Republican Party. So, Cenk, there were some Republicans who actually defended Massie, but I want you to jump in first.
Yeah, it's typical thug behavior from Donald Trump. Anyone who dares disagree with him slightly, throw him out of the party. That's it. Throw him out. Okay. And it's fascist 101. It doesn't matter why he disagrees. Does he disagree out of principle? Does he disagree with you from a left-wing perspective or a right-wing perspective? So, by the way, honestly, establishment Democrats and mainstream media do the same thing. They're like, oh, Bernie Sanders disagrees with Democratic leadership. Throw him out of the party. Throw him out of the party. Wait, hold on. He's coming at you from the left wing, not from the right wing. So what's your objection?
That is their objection.
Well, that is their objection, exactly. But in this case, conservatives actually do care about people being right wing. So that's why they backed up Massie, which was weirdly, strangely proud of them for backing up Massie. And so what's my point of view? Look, Massie has two very legitimate points. One is the constitutional issue that he brings up, and I think it's a tough call here because you have to bring people back into Congress, and it does endanger their health to do that. On the other hand, these voice votes where you don't know who voted what, it helps them escape accountability, and I can't stand that. So that's good point number one. And the second point is, look, it is $30,000 for every family of five, and like whenever we say, hey, can we get health care for everyone, or can we build the energy infrastructure in this country to save the planet, people scream, how are you going to pay for that? When you've got he says $2 trillion there, but he later clarifies there's the extra $4 trillion from the Fed that we've been talking about for a couple of days now. But when you have $6 trillion that's going to the top corporations in the country, or most of it is, everybody's know what it asks. How are you going to pay for it? So I think Massie has perfectly legitimate points of view from the right wing.
Right. And, what we've been hearing about Republicans for a long time is that they're the so-called fiscal conservatives. And so I got to be honest, every once in a while, when you actually do find a principled Republican who is a fiscal conservative, you got to give them props because they remain principled, even knowing that someone like Donald Trump is going to engage in his thug behavior and attack him. Luckily, there were some Republican lawmakers who defended Massie, and one of them was Paul Gosar. He said the following: Mr. Trump, Representative Massie is a good man and a solid conservative. He believes in the Constitution strongly. We won't always agree on strategy or policy, but he doesn't want this dressing down. Thomas, hang tough brother, #coronavirus outbreak. And then there's a conservative blogger with the Daily Wire named Matt Walsh. He jumped in as well and said that Massie is a... Yes, Cenk.
Sorry, just to jump in for a second. Mm-hmm. So Gosar said he doesn't warrant this kind of attack. And remember, Gosar's a maniac. He's the one that all of his family members said, whatever you do, don't vote for our brother. And he always says like insane things left and right. But here, I don't mind. I could disagree with them 98% of the time, but we're honest enough to say, hey, they have a good point. I don't even know that I would vote with them, right? I think it's a really, really tough question. But I think this is coming out of actual principle because Gosar normally is ensconced in Donald Trump's bosom. So the fact that he's left that comfortable bosom shows you, man, he really is acting out of his right-wing principles, which give him credit for, even a lunatic like Gosar.
Oh, bosam's a good word. And then conservative blogger Matt Walsh with the Daily Wire also defended Massey, tweeting, "Massey's a good congressman. This bill is garbage," and calling for a good conservative to be thrown out of the party because he doesn't want to vote for a garbage bill is itself a garbage move. And
Wow.
I definitely enjoyed that tweet, but I liked his follow-up tweet to that, which was, "Now watch the shameless groupies take Trump's side against one of the most consistent conservatives in Congress just because he told them to."
All right, look, I super respect that. I
Yeah.
mean, to have the cojones to say that Trump is doing a garbage move when you're working for a right-wing outlet. And yes, we somehow had bosom and cojones in the same story here. But give Matt Walsh credit. I'm sure I don't agree with any other thing he's ever said, but it's courageous to take on Trump like that, and it's principled.
All right. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to have a discussion about the sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. I had done a live video on it earlier this week, but we're going to get into a more detailed discussion on a former Senate staffer's allegations against him. Okay, so stick around. We'll do that story and more when we come back.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Jank. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, "Sir, would you like to rethink that?" And I go, "What are you talking about?"
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps f***ing cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong! I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, "Why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck.
But what makes you stop right before 40? You know, what makes you say,
So that's wrong
nah,
number.
man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool."
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, "Okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the f***? You said you'd come on and you didn't come on."
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, "I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I heard of it. I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Easily.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just going to ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies, and members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join, and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back!
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Oh.
No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh!
Wow. This is the weirdest game.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the "Do I Still Have This Talent" show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I just got to read these two comments. They're from our members, and they're great. Kid and activist wrote in, someone would come along after an airline failed and buy the planes and start a new airline, which is the real way that the free market works. We do not have a free market or true capitalism. I've been dying to say that for day after day. Thank you for making that point. We do the show together. Yes, it's true. It doesn't mean we won't have airlines anymore. It'll just be new companies, but it's not going to happen now because the old companies are going to get bailed out. And Super Last Thing writes in, Democratic leadership wasn't rolled, Cenk. They were clearly willing participants in tying money for people and money for corporations together. Republicans win because they have no opposition because they all work for the same masters. That is certainly true. Look, guys, in these hard times, we need your help with tyt.com/go, but don't forget other great organizations like wolf-pack.com. Okay, we got to get the money out of politics. Otherwise, none of this ever gets fixed. All right, Anna, what's next?
Okay. Well, this is a story that I shared with you all in a live video, but I thought it was important to have this discussion in greater detail. So, Tara Reade, a former Senate staffer for Joe Biden, has come forward with detailed sexual assault allegations against him. Now, she alleges that she was assaulted by Joe Biden back in the early 90s, 1993 to be specific, when she was, and then later she wanted to get some legal help in coming forward with these allegations, and she was allegedly turned away from the Time's Up movement. We'll get into the details on that in just a minute, but I think it's important for you to hear from Tara Reade herself. She was interviewed by Katie Halper, and that's where she detailed the sexual assault. Let's take a look at the first video.
I actually did come forward in 93, but not to the press, but I went through protocol and complained.
What was your complaint about?
Sexual harassment. I did not complain formally about the other piece of what happened that I'll talk about in a few minutes, but I talked about what was witnessed. And the general atmosphere of the office, the way I was treated, because I would see him at meetings and he would basically put his hands on me, put his hands on my shoulder, run his finger on my neck. He was very like handsy with a lot of people, but like with it's like what I had, and I have said this that's in the press before from the last time. It made me feel like an inanimate object. I didn't feel like a person. He didn't like make conversation with me or talk with me or ask me anything relevant.
So I wanted you all to hear that portion. We're about to play one other video that gets very graphic. And so I just wanted to warn everyone who, might become triggered from the talk of sexual assault or rape. But before we get to it, I do want to also note that, in that clip, she talks about how there were people who witnessed it. She actually did report it. She went through the appropriate protocol. And Ryan Grimm wrote a piece about this in The Intercept. And he contacted Tara Reade's friend and brother, both of whom say she told them about the alleged sexual assault by Biden in 1993. In fact, her brother was quoted as saying, woefully, I did not encourage her to follow up. I wasn't one of her better advocates. I said, let it go, move on, guys are idiots, right? So when Lucy Flores, a Nevada politician, came forward to talk about how she felt that she was inappropriately touched by Biden, that's what encouraged Reade to come forward with her story about sexual harassment. But when she did that, she started getting attacked by Democrats in the media, Biden people, who wanted to smear her as nothing more than, a Bernie supporter who wants to destroy Biden's campaign, right? And then there were allegations of her being a pro-Russia asset or agent. But I go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, sorry. Just this topic is so important for two different reasons. One is, did it happen? And if it happened, and what exactly happened? Because what you're about to hear is far more graphic. And what can we do about it? The second issue that's so important here is how the media is treating it. Right. So let's let you hear the full story, and then we'll give you the full context on both of those topics.
I was wearing like a skirt and, a business skirt, but I wasn't wearing stockings. It was kind of a hot day that day, and I was wearing heels. And I remember my legs had been hurting from the marble, of the Capitol, like walking. And so I remember that kind of stuff. I remember like that, and it was kind of an unusually warm day. And I remember I was wearing a blouse, and he just had me up against the wall, and the wall was cold. And I remember it happened all at once. The gym bag, I don't know where it went. I handed it to him, it was gone. And then his hands were on me and underneath my clothes. And yeah, and then he went down my skirt, but then up inside it. And he penetrated me with his fingers, whatever. And he was kissing me at the same time, and he was saying something to me. He said several things, and I can't remember everything he said. I remember a couple of things. I remember him saying first, before, like as he was doing it, do you want to go somewhere else? And then him saying to me, when I pulled away, he got finished doing what he was doing, and I kind of was pulled back, and he said, come on, man, I heard you liked me.
And he allegedly also told her, "You're nothing to me," which she said was somehow like more painful, like the thing that she still like has a lot of pain about today, because she had admired him so much and, really felt lucky that she got the opportunity to work for him. So to hear him say that to her is something that it still pains her to this day.
Okay, so let's break it down. So look, in every one of these cases, it is an extraordinarily difficult topic because on the one hand, if she's telling the truth and no one believes her, that's disgusting, man. And I can't stomach the thought of someone going through that and then having en masse people claim that she's a Russian agent and not believing her. Now, it's also equally true that if someone did not do that and someone's making it up about them, that is incredibly painful. And I don't know where they go to get their reputation back, what people are going to think of their character back, etc. Now, when you're analyzing that, in the past, we were told by mainstream media, etc., you're not allowed to question the women. Now, on this show, we do things we're not allowed to do. And I like to think that we're courageous in trying to deal with the topics. So we think context matters. Do we think that women are right about this every single time? No. It is there are percentages, there are real life issues, and there's context. At the same time, what we point out to you guys is believe the women does not mean that it's categorical. What it means is statistically, 98% of the time, women are telling the truth. So if your assumption going in, not in a court of law, the proof has to be presented by the prosecution, and the person is innocent until proven guilty. But when you're looking to see who's telling the truth in the court of public opinion, women who report this stuff, 98% of the time it's true. Mm-hmm. Now you could say, hey, listen, in politics that number might not hold, etc. But we can and we must have honest conversations about this. So in this case, the real way to look at it is, well, look, I got to know what her motivations are. So if she's a diehard Bernie Sanders supporter, that might make a difference. If she really is, related to the Russian government, that would make a huge difference, right? And those are relevant things to consider. But now when you look at those facts, it turns out, no, originally she supported Elizabeth Warren, and then Marianne Williamson at some point, and then Bernie Sanders. So, okay, that doesn't really hold. On the Russia stuff, having read some of the Medium posts that she wrote about how great Putin was, it made me deeply uncomfortable. So that's real. On the other hand, when you read the last story I read was from Vox, and it was probably the best story on this. Mm-hmm. And there she explains, look, I was reading Chomsky, and I had written I wanted to write a romance story around Russia, and I had a romantic views of Russia from when I was younger, etc. But then I read about the domestic violence happening under Putin, and I no longer believe that. Well, okay, it sounds super credible. Okay, maybe it's not, and you all have to make up your own mind. And you never know. Anybody could be wrong about this. But when you hear the full context of the story, man, she sounds credible. So then and I gotta go ahead, Jink.
but I got to jump in soon, so hurry.
No, go ahead.
No, I have to say, look, all of the, like Richard Painter, right, who's worked for Obama's administration for ethics and all that stuff. Like all these people who are smearing her and they're trying to brush her off as someone who's not credible, quite honestly, disgust me. Because if these were accusations against Donald Trump, we damn well know that they would take it seriously and they would demand that there's an investigation. When the allegations came out against Brett Kavanaugh, they were taken seriously, and I'm glad they were taken seriously. You can't change your view on sexual assault allegations simply based on whether or not it's convenient for you to believe them or to take them seriously, right? So for me, if these accusations were made against politicians that I like, it doesn't matter. It's not my job to determine whether the story or the accusations are true or not. It is the job of professionals who investigate these types of accusations. And so for people who are like making a decision about whether or not she's telling the truth, based on what? What evidence do you have that she's not telling the truth? You have no evidence. The only thing that people are really referring to is her support for Bernie Sanders after the election, the primary election, ended up being between Biden, who she's accusing of sexual assault, and Bernie Sanders. That was the only other viable candidate at that point. It's just gross because what I've seen over and over again is a bunch of hacks exploiting women for their political advantage, for their political gain. But when push comes to shove, they don't actually care about protecting women and looking out for them. They just don't. They love to use women's issues for the little political campaigns or to push political candidates they like.
Yeah, so media, you tell me what the standard is, because I don't understand it. Because when it was allegations against Republicans or anyone progressive, but largely, to be fair, it was against Republicans, you said, no, you must believe the women and you should not even look at any of the context. Now, when it's an allegation against your beloved establishment Democratic candidate, now you turn around and say you're illegitimate if you believe her. Oh my God. I mean, that's insane. And they all say it with a straight face. Isaac Edward Dovere, one of the worst journalists in the country, is the one who smeared her in the first place. Oh, did you know? Oh, is it Russia, right? But New York Times, where are you? CNN, where are you? NPR, etc. So, and everyone on the planet knows if this same exact allegation was against Bernie Sanders, he would be immediately disqualified by every single writer in the country. And look, last thing, is also the personal issue with me that I made a joke 21 years ago, and every mainstream media outlet thought it was disqualifying that I made a joke 20 years ago. But this is not disqualifying for Biden. Insanity.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Thanks for bearing with us. We will see you next week with another week of crazy news. See you soon.
Hi, quarantine friend. I'm Brett Ehrlich, not only host of Happy Half Hour, which we can't shoot because it will require use of the studio, but also a viral video film school, a show I did starting, I want to say, oh my God, 15 years ago, for which I won this Webby. You're here with me at my bar, and I'm going to take you through old specials that I have to pass the time, and you yourself can watch by going to youtube.com/viralvideos. That's how old it is. I have that URL. The people at TYT are going to air these, but it doesn't mean they own them, and that's contractually obligating, okay? These are all democracy disasters. You'll catch on to the format quickly as we enjoy a flip-flop from Dick Cheney. Enjoy. If you're a politician, the old flip-flop is a great way to make a video go viral. Romney did it.
You can see in my record as governor that I have consistently been pro-life.
I believe that abortion should be safe and legal in this country.
Giuliani did it.
We can end illegal immigration. We're never ever going to be able to totally control immigration.
But they're just a couple of rookies. If you want to see a real professional, just say, show me some dick.
How many additional dead Americans is Saddam worth? And our judgment was not very many, and I think we got it right.
My head feels crazy. Now, flip-flopping, Dick Cheney totally wrote the book on it. And I have that book, The Book of Dick. And Cheney uses every trick in this book. Trick 1, patience, grasshopper. Put some time between your flip and your flop. If I can watch you both flip and flop in 10 seconds, you're calling me and you an idiot.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion. Before I voted against it.
Well played. Cheney gave this interview in 1994. It takes a special someone to say something that he didn't believe 13 years ago just so he can get 600,000 views. His discipline is insane. It surpasses even Rumsfeld in this classic, Shaking Hands with Saddam. Lesson 2, don't half-ass it. Raise the stakes. This isn't I'm going to McDonald's and then I'm not going to McDonald's. Think big. This isn't cheeseburgers and McFlurries. It's
been a U.S. occupation of Iraq, Arab forces, and Saddam Hussein's government, then the Syrians, the Iranians with the Kurds, but for the 146 Americans killed in action.
And 3, once you made your video, bury it deep, someplace no one will ever find it. C-SPAN. Nobody watches this channel. 4, the tiny touches. He leaves no doubt that this is the same dude. He looks exactly the same now as he did 13 years ago. Same glasses, same head nods.
No.
He still keeps his hair mainly here, and his word choice, quagmire.
It's a quagmire.
Quagmire.
It's a quagmire.
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 It's fabulous. I mean, there's one thing you could have done to improve it. You could have contradicted yourself in other areas, like these. Of course I've taken a gun safety course. No bid contracts. If anything, I'm Mr. Yes Bid contracts. I'd love to talk about my daughter, the lesbian. That'd have been awesome. You've really outdone yourself. Other politicians are probably thinking, do I have a video like this? And if so, how do I get it out there? Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter if there's one copy that you threw away in a dumpster in 1974. Someone's gonna find it, and it'll be everywhere. Join us next time on Viral Video Film School. Hey everybody, do you want to know what my refrigerator sounds like? That started right before we started recording. Next up, in 2008, they were just learning how to do the viral video thing, and they spent millions and millions of dollars on campaigns, but they were outdone by a bunch of people making music videos at home. Enjoy. Hi. Campaign-made videos will never be as compelling or fun to watch as the ones made by Jim and Joe Poop Body out there. Sad fact. And it's not like the campaigns aren't trying. Barack Obama, gripey pipey, no one to say when. You know you have a problem when there's a place on your YouTube page where you can click to see all 907 videos. And there's like 200 celebrity endorsements. And do we need them all? Especially when the last time the star was relevant was long ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Hi, I'm Mark Hamill. I hope all my friends in Pennsylvania will gather up all their friends on April 22nd and vote Barack Obama.
You look not like a Jedi. Is this the Mark Hamill we want? No, but the sad truth is, despite your nigh on 1,000 attempts, when you ask someone, what's the Barack Obama video? Their answer is invariably, I've got some boobies and tatas. Nothing to do with the future of this country. I mean, only slightly less well known is this one.
It was a creep.
But seriously, how proud can you be when your entire campaign staff was one up by a guy who wrote a song that goes, let's get retarded in ha, let's get retarded in hia. Hillary Clinton has the same problem. She puts all that money and all those resources into commercials that run on her website, and they're all intent on making her seem human and normal and approachable and accessible. It just comes up sounding like bull.
This is me in Scranton, where my father was raised and my grandfather worked in the lace mill. Every August, we'd pile into the car and head to our cottage on Lake Winola. There was no heat or indoor shower.
Well, things must have been really hard for you on those summer vacations to your cottage on the lake. But despite her 329 videos, you ask someone, what's the Hillary video? They invariably reply,
Yo soy la pequeña Hillary Clinton.
look at her go! Worth noting here, 24,000 views, 390,000 views. McCain's got a very similar problem, except instead of showing videos of himself as a child, because that would be impossible, he's had his daughter come along in the campaign trail and vlog about what she's doing. It's also filmed like an episode of The Hills.
Yesterday we hosted the press corps at our cabin in Sedona, and my dad grilled his famous ribs and chicken for them.
Let the rain fall down on my awesome sweatshirt. Also, here's a choice moment.
I think Mom also had a good time when she was there. People don't see her silly side enough, and she was definitely much more playful with everyone.
This is much better than Washington, D.C., isn't it? I think.
Oh, Cindy, you are a riot. But despite his 187 videos, you ask anyone, what's that McCain video? They will invariably shout out,
It's raining McCain. Hallelujah, it's raining McCain. Amen.
First of all, John McCain is in no shape to be rained. He's more in the shape to be water aerobicsed, or reminded where he parked his car. And second, this video made in the national dialogue. John McCain had to answer questions about it on the news.
Senator, they love you. What do you think of these women?
I think they're wonderful, and I have watched that video several times, and I'm very grateful, and it's very entertaining.
Okay, now back to the war on terror. What's the lesson? The internet is not a place for campaign strategists. They haven't figured it out yet. It's a place for dancing Chilean little people and this woman.
You're welcome, bitches.
But not for campaigners. This is no country for old men. This is a country for 2 girls and 1 cup. Join us next time on Viral Video Film School. Coming up, is this guy peeing on people? No, it's much, much equally as bad as that.
Welcome back to the Viral Video Film School Campaign Disaster Special. We, before the break, made fun of presidential campaigns. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to celebrate local campaign ads because they are priceless.
With so much focus on the presidential election, thousands of local and state races have been swept under the rug of democracy, and it's grody down there.
My dad wasn't rich or famous, but he was one of the wisest men I ever knew.
He taught me how to walk on water. I'm Mike, Jesus' brother. Your ads are short, so cover ground. Show them that you can hoist babies, not see, touch type, connect with people in hard hats who are pregnant. It's a twofer. Show them how responsive you are to your constituents.
Jan Angel has answered thousands of emails from citizens.
That's not how you do that. Let's say the incumbent's been in office for a long time. What metaphor would work best?
You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
I understand, but if my dog did that trick, I wouldn't want him to learn any other tricks. Engage your opponent. Let's say he's an ultimate fighting champion.
My opponent gets paid hundreds of thousands for his brutal fights. But I know a little something about the ultimate fights, too. For me, the ultimate fight was raising 2 teenage sons alone.
There was blood all over the nursery. This clip makes it look like a Wall Street guy is peeing on people.
As Kansans get angrier, rich executives just get richer. While they're getting bailouts or gushing record profits, the rest of us are just getting hosed by senators like Pat Roberts.
Oh, it's gasoline. What are you so upset about, guy? It's gasoline. It's not pee, it's just gasoline. Though I must say, thank God it's not the chocolate candy bar industry that's fleecing America. Remember, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So why not imitate the most controversial campaign ad of all time that implies your vote could cause nuclear war?
4, 5, 1.
Nuclear weapons can destroy life on our planet. Aaron Schock said we should sell nuclear weapons to Taiwan.
It's great to know that the only thing between us and nuclear holocaust is the U.S. representative from the 18th District of Illinois. Yvonne Ward has a lesson for us. What the
Yvonne Ward for State Senate.
I know she's very silent while the weirdness envelops us all, but what she means to say is a politician's level of qualification is directly related to how dangerous their mode of transportation is, hence the motorcycles and rapids canoes. Thus, this candidate is not qualified, and I am infinitely qualified, for I drive a spike ball. And hey, your family's gonna sacrifice a lot when you become school board rep. So show your appreciation by using them. Your constituents will know how much you love your family by the fact that you block them completely and don't seem to care. When all else fails, use your constituents to make extremely contrived displays of support that are physically painful to watch.
As a small business guy, I can tell you, it's also key to keeping good paying jobs here in this country.
But Annie and the kids agree. We saw the commercial, we love it. We're all here to volunteer.
This commercial was still shooting.
This is important. Look, everybody's here, ready to go.
That's impossible. There's no way they could possibly have seen that commercial as they were filming it. There's... What are you doing?
We saw the viral video film school. It was great.
That's impossible.
Join him on the next viral video film school.
And now a viral video film school pop quiz. At what point in this video do you start feeling strange?
I'm Saxby Chambliss and
Mama. Bingo! Alternate endings to this video include, I'm Saxby Chambliss and I approve the future home of my grandchild's boobies. And that was your viral video film school pop quiz. I don't care that you cheated.
Oh, Saxby Chambliss. That's one of my favorite names in all of politics because it sounds like a fictional character in like a romance novel that's loosely based on Gone with the Wind, but like way pornier. Like he's a roguish aristocrat named Saxby Chambliss that also does it real good. Anyways, we're going to go from that to third-party candidates, people who really want to be involved in the political process but break in at the top as president. Enjoy.
The internet is awash with third-party presidential hopefuls sitting in front of their webcams, trying to convince voters that there's more to a candidate than just the size of his party apparatus. I've been studying them intently, and in case you are interested in making your very own run at the White House, I've crafted this easy-to-follow instructional video on how to become a successful third-party candidate. Hope you enjoy. First, get a website with an easy-to-remember address, like Brad Lord Lutweiler's voteforbrad.com. If an address of this kind is unavailable in your name, you may have to buy it from the 8th grader who's using it for his student body treasurer campaign. As soon as you can, start making web videos, or voters won't get to know the real you. We'll only ever be able to make sweeping generalizations regarding about to get run over by a truck Bill Ingram and angry independent postage stamp Don Cordell. Drench your videos with patriotic imagery. You may be tempted to use an actual flag for your background. This is incorrect. Instead, buy a TV and put a video with a flag on the TV. While more expensive, at least it costs more. Mainstream politicians are always afraid to offend people. This should never enter into your mind. Offend the shit out of everyone.
There's a lot of people that use slavery as an excuse. How is the white man keeping the black man down?
Nailed it, sister. That's no small feat. Most people have other things on their mind while trapped in the back of a police car. Don't forget to make unique and inappropriate comments.
I don't accept any money from anybody except individual Americans and no more than $25. Show me one other candidate that will do that, and I will personally smooch them where the sun doesn't shine.
This allows supporters to craft their own ads, like the one this person made. Vote for Brad. He'll smooch where the sun doesn't shine. He's talking about the dark parts of your butt. Make a mature, reasoned case why you've abandoned your party. And remember, above all things, stay on message.
And the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that this is the problem. Crack-smoking Republicans have taken over the Republican Party. Only by confronting the crackheads that we have a chance to right the party. You must be smoking crack. Crack-smoking Republicans are living in a little fantasy world. The crack-smoking Republicans drive the crackheads out of the party. Are you one of those crack-smoking Republicans I've been hearing about?
Hooray, crack! If we've learned anything over the past 8 years, it's that a president is only as good as his or her advisors. So have a crack team ready for day one.
The other people that I would like to have in our cabinet would be Ron Silva,
Jessica Alba from Hollywood, Nancy Grace of CNN Headline News, maybe Obama. I'd like him to be in my cabinet as well.
You've got my vote. And hey there, why not have an in-your-face plan? This guy knows the best plans are the simplest and often involve millions of things.
We should hand out 1 million cell phones directly to families in Iraq to call for help and turn in their terrorist neighbors. 1 million handguns to defend themselves, 1 million computers with neutral software to teach our children, 1 million generators, air conditioners, water, gasoline, and wastewater tanks.
The videos in your library should reinforce each other, like Alan Keyes do. For every claim,
his eloquent debating skills helped raise the country's moral consciousness.
Provide video that backs it up.
If an apple has a worm in it, the worm is not part of the definition of the apple. It doesn't change what the apple is in principle.
Okay, if you adhere to these easy-to-follow instructions, you'll get literally dozens of votes. I hope you learned something. Join us on the next Viral Video Film School. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, a touching ode to that Clinton who didn't do anything with the cigar. Ew, gross. Sorry for bringing it up.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Viral Video Film School takeover of the Happy Half Hour. Again, you can watch all of these videos and more if you go to youtube.com/viralvideos. It has probably hundreds of these, but we're doing Democracy Disasters. This is a song I wrote when Hillary Clinton dropped out of the race in 2008. Some of the jokes aged well, others didn't. Decide for yourself.
So she's gone. And I'm breaking apart. She gave us so much great stuff. And now I don't know how to express myself except in song. It used to be I didn't care who answered the phone at 3 till you brought it up so subtly.
Your children are safe and asleep. Who do you want answering the phone?
Oh, Hillary. And you know what? Shoot. It'd be cool if you'd answered in like a hoodie or a nut boot. It's 3 a.m. But instead you're wearing pearls and a pantsuit. And those glasses I bought when I went through my aloof hipster phase. Used to be nobody feared your chance of victory. And so they remade commercials from 1984 or 83. Oh, Hillary, you're the PC. This commercial presented viewers with a very clear choice. Do you want to hang out and watch TV with your best monochrome buddies? Or would you rather wear ass shorts and chuck hammers at screens that make huge explosions at the slightest hint of impact? Take it to the bridge! The girl who sang your song may not be as conventionally hot, but yeah, I probably still would. And Bill, he said some things that didn't go over so well back in the hood. And you know, we saw you with that coffee machine that made you fuss and fidget. And who could forget that Chilean transvestite midget?
Yo soy la pequeña Hillary Clinton.
I sure can't. Oh, Hillary, you know I miss you already, Hillary. And I could never get my Hillary. Oh no, because you're Hillary. I'm lost in this world now that you are gone. Nobody asking for my money all by my telephone. You got me mentioned in an issue of Rolling Stone. They said I called you Hill Boater, when really I called you Hill Boner. Just to clear that up. Oh, sweet first lady of my heart. I want to give you 5. You were so gracious with those people on Saturday Night Live. I'm gonna miss your smile. Your hair always so well kempt. You're the one who got choked up. How come I'm the one who's feeling so verklempt? Hillary, I'm gonna miss you already, Hillary. Oh, I know I won't ever go get my fillery. I wanna cook something for you on my farm and grillery. Join us on the next Viral Video Film School. Thank you, Hillary Clinton, and into the Bossa Nova if we can get there.
Wow, we did it. That's the end. Cheers to you guys. Watch next week when you'll see this cup in a future episode. Thanks to Alex Jablonski for facilitating this whole thing and working remotely to do it. And thank you. And again, I apologize for using the M word in the last song. I feel like also that shirt I was wearing was literally from Saudi Arabia. So I feel bad for that too. Also inappropriate. And whatever else you didn't like. Come back next week.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Friday Post Game. I'm your host, Malcolm Flesher. This is Steve O. This is Dave Kohler. We're the three amigos. We love you. You love us. It's all a big happy family. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. The 30th half hour, the final half hour of the week. At this
point, the 120th half hour of our lives.
Yeah, well, we're in the midst of recording our 4th of 4 episodes of the Friday Post Game because we record a month of them at a time, which explains why the stuff we're going to talk about has nothing to do with anything that's happened the past month. Well, except for some untimely deaths, but I don't want to give anything away. So, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're recording this way back in early March, and so we don't know what's happened in the primaries. We don't know what's happened all over the world. I'm sure with coronavirus, we're still at the, in the beginning of that bell curve, hoping it doesn't have much of an amplitude, but who knows? So we're going to give you a great show. We got lots of really interesting stuff to talk about, and the thing I want to start with is sort of one of the things we do here on the Friday Post Game is we try to bring a sort of aggressive progressives feel to some of the content that we deliver, because I know there's a crossover with fans of the Friday Post Game and aggressive progressives, and Steve and I remember it fondly and love doing that show. So I have this article that I wanted to share with you from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, about the debates, the presidential debates, specifically the Democratic presidential debates. And did you guys get a chance to look at the story? It's okay if you didn't.
It's the one about the questions?
Yeah. About the moderators, the way the debate moderators handle the debates. And a lot of the commentary about debate moderation relates to not so much the questions they ask, but whether they're able to keep control. Yeah. Because the people are shouting over each other. You only have a minute and 15 seconds. Okay, I'll let you respond. Okay, no, she was mentioned. So, nobody knows the rules as they, so they do, there's a fair amount of commentary on that. And then how well the debate moderators did often revolves around how well they kept everything under control. And the irony is that what they're really keeping under control, that's more important they keep under control, is not how much each candidate is speaking and and who they're talking over and if they go over time and all that, but what they're trying to control is the range of debate and the framing of the way the issues are discussed. So this story from FAIR, they talked about 3 different areas that have been covered in debates ad nauseum: healthcare, electability, and military affairs. It's a lengthy article. I encourage you to go read it. I'm just going to focus on the healthcare aspect because it's very incisive and insightful about how the debate moderators, the way they ask questions and who they ask different kinds of questions, frames the debate and helps determine how people feel about these issues. So we can go to the story. Debates are ostensibly an exercise in democracy, a chance for voters to evaluate candidates' positions in order to cast a better informed vote in the nominating contest. But a review of 3 of the most frequent topics of debate starkly demonstrates how media hosts use their platform less to inform voters in an even-handed way than to define which positions and candidates are acceptable and which are not. So on healthcare, they talk about how both Bernie and other candidates a lot of the questions were framed in terms of Bernie's position. Medicare for All was the anchor, and a lot of the questions were framed as negatively towards that anchor. It wasn't like Joe Biden's position is this, let's all talk from that reference point. It was Bernie's position that was, and that can be good or bad.
There's a good part to that.
It depends on how it's framed. I mean, but that's still a choice that they're making, and not one that you can defend. Like, why is why is Medicare for all the default anchor that we're going to operate around when they all have different options, and more of the candidates support a non-Medicare for all position. So anyway, so we go to the story. Moderators have asked more questions about health care than any other issue. When Medicare for All has been raised, specifically named in 24 questions plus many more follow-ups, it has been overwhelmingly associated with negative impacts, forcing people off their private insurance, paying, that's the date of the debate, by the way, that it's mentioned there, paying more in taxes, getting Donald Trump reelected, or costing you critical votes, forcing people in the health insurance industry out of work. These are the context of the questions. Keep going. Senator Sanders, I'm sorry, 16 of the 20, Senator Sanders, no, wait, I get that wrong. No, go back, I'm sorry, yeah, there you go. 16 of the 24 questions on Medicare for All had this kind of negative spin, while only one also mentioned a positive outcome, that insurance premiums and other costs would be eliminated. However, even that single question asked of Elizabeth Warren by CNN's Jake Tapper was framed to discount the benefit mentioned. So here's how he framed it. This is the only positive framing of Medicare for All. Senator Sanders has said that people in the middle class will pay more in taxes to help pay for Medicare for all, though that will be offset by the elimination of insurance premiums and other costs. Are you also, quote, with Bernie on Medicare for all when it comes to raising taxes on middle class Americans to pay for it? So he frames it in terms of, well, there is a positive and to this negative. Are you supporting this negative and ignoring the positive? So anyway, so that's, okay, so all the other candidates besides Bernie and Warren at the time had plans that were stopped short of Medicare for all, and they were asked about negative impacts of their plans only 3 times. And that, in the second debate, Michael Bennet was asked if his plan was enough to get us to universal coverage, which is not nearly as negative as what they asked of Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. So anyway, but I won't go through those. Next graphic. Most of the questions about non-Medicare for all plans were framed neutrally, typically either in the form of "What's your response?" or, as when the New York Times' Mark Lacey asked Tom Steyer, "How would you address the opioid epidemic that exists here in Ohio and around the country?" So it's just these open-ended questions that aren't framed negatively, like you say your plan will do this, but critics say it will do this. How do you defend it? It was just what is your plan to solve this problem? And then it allows you to skip over the negative, or not even talk about the negative, obviously, and just talk about the positive aspects of your plan. And that is done intentionally. So go back to the story. 11 of Warren's questions asked her to address criticisms or make clarifications about her plan. None asked her about flaws in her opponent's plans, unless you count the 3 times she was asked whether she would follow Sanders' lead in being, quote unquote, candid about the fact that middle class taxes are going to go up and most of private insurance is going to be eliminated. Of Sanders' questions, 8 asked him to address criticisms or potential pitfalls of his plan. None asked him about flaws in his opponent's plans. So they're all coming just hammer, hammer, hammer. This is wrong with your plan. Defend yourself. This is wrong with your plan. Defend yourself. None of the other candidates had to do that, and Sanders and Warren weren't asked, how are you going to achieve universal coverage, or some sort of other positive spin to it. So that's and that's been true throughout the debates when they talk about healthcare. Go back, and here's more. By contrast, Biden has gotten next to no scrutiny of his healthcare plan. In fact, he has received the same number of questions about the flaws of his opponent's plans as he has questions, seldom critical, about his own plan. And then we have examples of the questions he's got. You are an architect, one of the architects of Obamacare. So where do we go from here? That's open-ended, very positive. So you said that undocumented immigrants would be covered under your plan, which is different than Obamacare. Can you explain that change? Vice President Biden, you just heard Mayor de Blasio. He said in the past that Democrats who wanted to keep their private insurance industry, or keep the private insurance industry, are defending a healthcare system that is not working. What's your response? So what's your response to something that is a negative said about somebody else? All right. So now let's see a contrast. He was asked, are Senator Warren and Sanders being realistic about the difficulty of enacting their plans? I mean, this is a fucking setup.
Yeah,
you spent an awful lot of time 10 years ago trying to pass a bill far less ambitious than what Senator Sanders is talking about here. Is he being realistic? I'm guessing the answer was no, that he was. They're teeing it up for him.
Yeah.
Vice President Biden, does Senator Sanders owe voters a price tag on his health care plan?
These are sickening questions.
These are real questions. This is what they do. And you're not, as a viewer, you're not supposed to be discerning enough to be like, wow, they're really, the message you're gonna take away from that is there are all kinds of problems with these plans, and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren just constantly playing defense and forced to. And even if they wanna go on the offense, they have to initially respond to the question, or if they avoid it, then the commentators come like, oh, but you wouldn't answer the question about raising taxes. So, and they ask the same questions over and over again at different debates. So, all right, so then we go back to the story. Biden wasn't the only one to receive questions about Sanders' healthcare plan. Pete Buttigieg, for example, was asked by ABC's George Stephanopoulos in the February 10th debate, Mayor Buttigieg, you just heard Senator Sanders make healthcare the center of his piece. Do you think his healthcare plan can bring people together? In addition, nearly all of the questions to Sanders and Warren that asked them to defend their own plan followed up by giving other candidates a chance to respond, essentially an invitation to attack. And that is how healthcare has been discussed in the debates throughout this presidential primary season. And it's a way in which media bias has a real impact, and the fact that the mainstream media, corporate media, has a stranglehold over debates and who gets to moderate them has an effect on how these issues are framed. And when you look at it like this, it becomes stark. But when you're just watching the debate and then they bounce around and go from one thing to the next, then it's harder to see. But those questions are undeniable. You see those questions of Biden, it's like it turns your stomach a little bit.
What do you think of this other guy's shitty plan? You tell me.
Yeah,
right.
He claims he doesn't beat his wife. Should we trust him?
Yeah.
And then the article goes on, as I said, to talk about electability, which is a bullshit concept anyway. But and how they never, when they talk about electability, they never mention polls, where Bernie was consistently doing as well as, or close to as well as Biden, but better than anybody else. And how Bernie had consistently been doing well in polls against Trump in 2016, but they talk about electability as if it is a set thing that's based on these nebulous concepts because that's easy for them. And then about foreign policy, you can only guess how they feel about foreign policy.
So I'm very impressed and happy. Bernie Sanders has done a great job in these past 4 years in moving the conversation and putting these topics on the table. But amazingly, with just a couple tweaks to his responses, he could do so much better. So the culprit is the media and the way they're framing this. But the Sanders and his supporters have to be more aggressive in their responses and attack back.
But when they say, oh, the framing is bad, it's biased in the media, then what do they say? You're just like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You're the media. You're saying the media is the enemy. It's a no fucking win. And by design.
Cenk's really good at it, and he doesn't win either. So.
Yeah, and he's not asked to be a debate moderator.
Right. No, I'm not talking about moderator as a candidate or commentator.
Yes, and responding, but you have a minute, 15 seconds. You don't know what the question is going to be. You have to be quick on your feet.
Yeah.
And admittedly, it's not hard to beat Joe Biden in a debate.
Now you do know what the questions are.
Yes, but you don't know what the question they're immediately going to ask you. Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
But it's just incredibly frustrating, and it's hard to see it and be so aware of it, and it's so stark. And then you talk about how you have friends who are sort of establishment Democrat supporters, and it's like, how do you not see this? And it's incredibly frustrating.
Yes, but in their small defense, if you're a casual watcher, you are not, parsing the questions asked by the moderator. You're just looking to hear the answers. But and when I was a child, I thought answers are more important, right? And a teacher would ask a question and ooh, I know the answer. Answers are not that important. It's the questions that are really important because it frames everything. What the parameters are, what the answers could be, and you set the agenda. So the questions are what's more important. And when you listen to the questions, it is revolting how biased they are in favor of the establishment against any kind of insurgency.
Can you imagine if the role was reversed and the questions were all like, "Hey, Joe Biden, you say your plan is you're going to improve on Obamacare, but your critics say that you're still going to leave 20 million people uninsured, which would lead to 40,000 unnecessary deaths every year. How do you respond to that?"
Exactly.
Yeah. They would never fucking say that.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
But that's how they should. If they're going to be fair.
The question could be, you seem very proud of passing Obamacare. However, under Obamacare, we have 60,000 people dying a year, according to the latest study by Lancet. How would your plan close that loop so we don't lose 60,000 Americans a year for lack of health insurance?
Yeah, or they say, look, Bernie Sanders' plan says that he will cover everybody. So, and according to Lancet, the 60,000 people won't die unnecessarily, that they will under your plan. Why do you think your plan is better if it's going to be 60,000 more people, Americans are going to die because of your plan than Bernie's?
Here's a question. So 3,000 Americans died on 9/11, but right now 60,000 Americans die every year because of lack of health care. That's 20 9/11s every single year. We went to war for 9/11. We spent $6 trillion. So $6 trillion times 20 is $120 trillion a year. Are we ready to spend that? You know, I mean, you can frame these questions in any sort of way.
Or you could say, Bernie Sanders says, I mean, and you don't have to, I mean, that's, you know, obviously that's weighted, but,
yes.
But you could say, Bernie Sanders says every other developed nation in the world has some form of universal health care, and yet critics say that we can't afford it here. Why can every other developed nation in the world afford to cover all their citizens and Americans can't? I'd like to know what the answer to that is. And you know, the answer is because we got to spend a lot of money on defense spending. We got to cut taxes, and mostly it's poor people who don't give a shit about them.
Bankruptcies resulting from healthcare costs are zero across all Western European nations and Canada, and in America it's 600,000 a year. How do you explain that?
Yeah, or how is your problem, your plan gonna, solve that problem? Okay, so so that's how the framing would be. It would be great, and when TYT gets to host debates, that's the kind of questions we'll ask.
Well, we can't host the debates. We'll just get like 14 people with no chance of winning coming here, and those with
one of whom later became a presidential contender. You know.
Is that right?
Marianne Williamson was running for that seat.
She was
here for that debate, the local LA congressional debate. She didn't win that, and she didn't win the presidency either. But at least she had the wherewithal and the strength and constitution to
the audacity of hope
to endorse Bernie, which we don't know. When we're recording this, we don't know what happened with Elizabeth Warren. We're recording this the day Elizabeth Warren announced that she was out. She quit the presidential campaign, and we don't know what she did. So we're still sort of it's called speculation by us. All right, well, let's move on because we want to close on a fun, upbeat, happy note. And as you guys who are longtime fans of the Friday postgame know, there's nothing more upbeat, happy-go-lucky, and just it makes me want to brim with joy. Does that make any sense? Than Dave's Graves.
Fingerprints all over that.
All right, Dave's Graves. What is Dave's? We haven't done Dave's Graves in forever.
Yeah, the first part of Dave's Graves is the artist's edition. So first up today, there's going to be 4 of these, by the way, is Bonnie McLean, who passed away at 80. She was an artist who basically designed, along with another group of artists, those psychedelic posters to promote rock shows in the 1960s, mostly under Bill Graham, the promoter at the Fillmore Auditorium. And these are like iconic images of the 60s era and the music scene in San Francisco. And she's an artist. There's not a lot of interesting parts to her life except to say that artists have a role in our society. For example, right here. I mean,
and these are her work was iconic.
Her work was iconic, which I said it represents that era.
Yeah.
So at the time, Bill Graham was not a concert performer. At the time that he met her, he was working as an office manager in a heavy equipment company, and she came in for a job interview with Bill Graham, and he said no.
Do people know who Bill Graham is or was?
Well, he was a famous concert promoter.
He's the concert promoter
Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead. Yeah. At first, she didn't get the job, but then she called back and insisted, and he did hire her, and then he started dating her. So this was way before the Me Too era, for sure. And they ended up getting married. So she was married to Bill Graham. She was an artist. She studied art in school, and she designed posters for his concerts.
Did they have any kids?
I don't know.
Because I went to high school with Bill Graham's son.
Oh, really?
And who later was a promoter himself, and he promoted Blues Traveler. And I would wonder if that was his mother.
Okay, so that's Bonnie McLean, who passed away at 80. That's good. Now we have another artist. Now, in case you had any doubt, and I don't know if people really do, that artists have an important role in society. Michael Hertz, age 87. So he is, again, a group of collaborative artists who...
Let's point out which one.
I don't know which one
I think it says he is the third from the left in the seated. So he's the guy... he's seated. There's the woman on the bottom. There's a guy next to her, and then the guy next to him is Michael Hertz, I believe.
So his major contribution to society was that he designed a user-friendly, appealing map of the New York City subways. And you think, why is Dave talking about this? The New York City subway, I don't know if you have the old New York City subway map. It's a very engineering style diagram. It's unfriendly. No, so that's the one he designed. That's the new one. The old one is more robotic. This one, it doesn't give you a sense of the city. It's not very inviting. It's not even that clear, actually. And if you know anything about New York City history, the subway was not very popular in the 70s and early 80s. But then Michael Hertz and his group of collaborators came up with a different map, because this is what artists do. They depict things in a way, and then all of a sudden the water is blue, Central Park is more inviting, and it's correct, closer to its correct proportions, and there's descriptions of what's going on in the neighborhoods around the subway. While you're looking at your route, you also learn about the city. You get ideas of where you might want to go and what's in the neighborhood. And it was very important in helping the New York City revive the use on the subway, and which is now a massively integral part of life in New York City, and it has a lot to do with a friendly map that people can use and relate to.
How much did you know about this before you read his obituary?
About that, nothing. But there's a quote in his obituary where he said it gave him so much pleasure and pride whenever he saw someone in Lederhosen, which would mean a German tourist, just staring at his subway map in the subway. When I went to college...
Everybody's got a weird fetish.
Yeah, right. I also rode those subways, and I learned a lot about New York City from just staring at the subway map. That's
it is much more inviting and appealing, but clearly. Can we go back to the photo of him with the group of people? I don't know what that was a photo of. It probably says members of the committee established. So I don't know when this was taken, but it's what strikes me about this photo is it was in the 1970s, but they only told the guy on the bottom right that it was the 70s.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like doesn't know.
To the 80s maybe.
But he's in tune with the time. That guy, he's in tune with the times. He's got the sideburns and the longish hair. Everybody else is all straight laced. Even Michael Hertz, but that guy, he was like, listen, you cats finish up with this map. I'm gonna head over to Studio 54, and I'll see you guys later.
So all right, so that's
Michael
another.
Hertz. But you're right. But you can just sit, and whether you don't have to wear lederhosen. You can just sit and stare at the New York City subway map, and it's a compelling visual experience
of the entire city. It doesn't just tell you where you're going.
Yeah, and I think that's true. In addition to helping you figure out where you're going and being more appealing, so that it's a weird sort of artistic endeavor that because it has this very important. Informational aspect, and then it's like, okay, how do we make it so that people will appreciate getting this information? And I'm sure there are the people who came up with the first map were like, it has all the same information. What's the problem?
What's the problem? It's an engineering drawing. It shows everything, but the problem was it didn't appeal to humanity.
Yeah.
So when I was in Paris this past summer, they had a map, like the first subway map of New York. Mm-hmm. I hated it. I was like, where am I going? It was. I mean, it was useful in the sense that the information is there. It just was unappealing to use.
Right.
But yeah, you look at that map, you're like, I want to hop on the subway and go see New York.
Yeah, I want to go.
This is so interesting. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it brings you together. Artists matter. Artists matter in society. So do doctors, by the way. And so the next guy is a doctor. Stanley
okay, so these are out of order. So we're gonna have to go to the last one. So this is a graphic 7. D207 we're going to.
Stanley Dudrick. So I alluded in a show a couple of weeks ago here that where Malcolm was saying he's doing his Friday postgame show prep on his own time at 1 a.m. So this was a doctor who was studying surgery, and he got disillusioned because after successful surgery, a lot of patients would still die. And he sought to find the causes of it, and he worked late at night after his shift, after midnight, on what the causes were and what the possible solution was. And he discovered they're dying from malnutrition because they can't get nutrition, they can't be fed in traditional ways, or they can't drink anything. So he developed the IV drip, or whatever you want to call it technically. And he worked on it on his own time, late at night, and he developed it. And now we take it for granted. It's so simple. But they say it's deceptively simple because it didn't exist before the, late 1960s. And it's saved tens of millions of lives worldwide since then, by whatever estimate they use. It's a great accomplishment that exactly the type of guy who gets on Dave's grave, someone who is not in the public eye, but he left a tremendous impact.
He probably saved the lives of you or people you know. His innovations are responsible for.
It's taken for granted now that you're going to have an eye drip and you're not going to die of starvation while you're being operated on.
Is that something you think about, like when something, an innovation comes along, you're like, why didn't somebody think about this before? Like, I flew here, and whenever I'm traveling, people who are younger, who are under 30, probably don't realize, but when we were kids, everyone just carried their suitcases. Yeah. Everyone had to carry their suitcases everywhere, and except for flight attendants and pilots, they had wheeled, not the bags, but they had like carts they would carry them, and it took much too long for the suitcase industry to be like, oh, maybe we should put wheels on them. And now everybody's just wheeling along. I'm like, but we were just lugging all this crap everywhere. I mean, it was tiring, and it's like all sorts of comedy emerged from that in the sitcoms and stuff. Bags tumbling down.
I remember it the same way.
Dad overloaded,
I almost can't believe it, even though it's my own memory. How could society have been so stupid not to put wheels on the bottom of the suitcase?
Another one that I think is, and also people under 30 or so, when we were kids, stamps were not stickers. You had to lick them. You had to lick them, and it's not like we didn't have stickers, And somebody at the post office one day was like, why are we making people lick these things? They taste disgusting. It's gross. It's a DNA sample, and nobody wants to spread their DNA everywhere, especially because 30 years from now there's gonna be coronavirus.
Right.
And why don't we just make them stickers and be like, no, we can't make stamp stickers. Well, and now, that it took so long. Those are just a couple, but there's countless examples.
We need innovators. But one last thing on Stanley Dudrick. Believe it or not, there is an American Society for Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition, which is what the IV drip is. And he was the founder and first president of this society. So good for him. I'm glad they didn't give that honor to someone else. He's the guy who invented the damn thing. So that's one very typical Dave's Graves candidate, because he left an impact on the world. The other typical is a cultural icon from the 1980s who is big in the lives of people like us.
But who is now, young people don't know who he is. Yeah.
And this one is Cy Sperling, president of Hair Club for Men.
Wait, was he just the president?
Well, we're gonna find out. So we have time, if you have it, we have a 1-minute video pulled from YouTube. This is a commercial from the 1980s that is iconic in anyone's life who watched TV in the 80s. I don't know if we have it. I'd like to just know.
I'm Cy Sperling, president of Hair Club for Men. If you've ever thought about doing something about your thinning hair, then this important new booklet is something you should have. And I'll see that you get it free if you call our toll-free number. The booklet is an honest, straightforward discussion of all the hair replacement techniques, including, of course, our own exclusive strand-by-strand hair system. It covers the good and not so good points of toupees and wigs, weaves, the suture process, transplants, and a lot more. It's designed to give you the facts you need to make an intelligent choice about what's best for you. So to get your free copy, no charge, no strings, just call our toll-free number now, and I'll send you the booklet along with a full-color supplement showing before and after photos of real Hair Club clients. So call now for your free copy. And by the way, I'm not only the Hair Club president, but I'm also a client.
That line, I don't know why, but it's very famous and iconic, and everyone from that era knows it. And that's why we're talking about Cy Sperling. And people, it's like, damn it, Jim, I'm not a X, I'm a Y. People use that and adapt it to whatever the situation is.
Right, I'm not just I'm also a member. But there's Cy. This is the famous side by side, and And credit to his video team, because with that herky-jerky slow zoom, I mean, that's, I mean, we talk about professionalism a lot on the Friday post game.
It was verite filmmaking.
I want to point out another thing that he said. He said, call this 800 number and I will see to it that you get a booklet. Why don't we have that same attitude with Weekly World News and the t-shirts? I will see to it that you get your t-shirt.
I'm the main host of the TYT Friday post game. I'm not the president. All right, we're getting kicked out again. Thanks so much for watching the Friday post game. We love the Proud 19. You guys are wonderful and so supportive of us. Leave us comments. Let us know what you think about the show. We read them all. Sometimes we respond to them. And that's how you get your name in this hat for future episodes of Weekly World News. Hopefully we'll have another one for you next week. And thanks also to our crew. We had Bart and Skip and Brendan in the control room and Edwin here. We appreciate all of their work and we love you guys. Have a great weekend, and as always, stay strong.